Our next presenter is Joel Feltman. There's Joel Feltman. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Forest Resource Management and a master's degree from Clemson. He's experienced with both GIS with Orbis and consulting forestry throughout his father's firm on spare time. Joel is a South Carolina registered forester and certified through the Society of American Foresters. Look forward to hearing your talk, Joel. Thank you.
And I do sound kind of sick, so I have been tested positive for a 2-year-old at home. So it's in daycare, so that's my only problem. Thank y'all for being here, whether you're here on Zoom or in person. And thank you, UGA, for hosting this. I was at another conference last month that you hear UGA this, UGA that, everything's UGA. So to my Clemson folks, I don't know what we have to do, but we got to do something to equal the playing field here. No, UGA puts on good conferences, and we really appreciate everything y'all do in forestry. So today, what I want to talk about is ArcGIS Online for Forest Management Consultants. And it's been touched on a good bit, but I think I'll pull it back to, I guess, simplify it a little bit, a higher level. And there's been examples shown of dashboards and things like that. But so if you've never used ArcGIS Online, what is it? It's a cloud-based solution where you can centralize your data and you can create. Now that it's centralized, you can start to create, edit spatial data and tabular data. You can share it among others in your company or externally if you want to. You can start to collaborate around this data more efficiently because it's centralized, and you can secure your data. So our Esri offers tons of products, ArcGIS products, and I think for different industries, different uses, there's extensions off of these products. These are not the only ones. These are just some examples. But today, I want to specifically talk about ArcGIS Online and how it can benefit us in forestry. Overview, talk a little bit about data transparency and how ArcGIS Online helps us with this. Talk about data storage, the benefits of having data in ArcGIS Online, some tips on getting started, and a little bit on data security. So 20 years ago, we didn't know what restaurants put in their food or where the ingredients was even coming from. So, but today, customers require this information. They demand this information, and if the restaurants can't provide it, then that customer is going to go somewhere else. So this is no different than in the forestry world today when we're talking about technology, which is the focus of being here today. There's so many different routes that you can take to managing your client's data efficiently and accurately. And I think that is why it's so transparency, and that's why transparency is so important, because there's so many different routes. It helps our client know that we are using those more efficient routes because there's so much stuff out there. More importantly, this builds trust with your clients. The good old boy network of doing work with a handshake, trusting each other with a handshake. It's not going away. I think it'll just strengthen as long as we have our details in place. Transparency in your business not only improves your client relations, but more importantly, improves your company and helps your company grow, and everyone can work towards the same goal. And I think for today, that's the main focus, because once we get this within our organizations, then it kind of naturally trickles out to our clients. So working in this field, I've seen a number of ways to store data. And 9 times out of 10, you got 1 or 2 people that can access that data and that's not a problem. That's a good thing. But when those only those 1 or 2 people out of 20 people in your company, for example, can answer questions about your land base. That's where the problem is. So it's our goal as professionals in this field and in the forest industry and data managers to provide these solutions that allow everyone in the company, no matter if you're an editor or a manager, to be able to answer these basic forestry questions like how much forested versus non-forested acres do we have? Are we managing, or pine versus hardwood, or what are the stands coming up next year for harvest? And simple questions like that, that right now we really rely on that one person, 1 or 2 people that have experience in ArcDesktop and can dig into it and answer those questions. And so now there's all these tools available for everybody to answer those. So one part of our business at Orbis, and while we're here, it's honestly, it's not to try to sell one of our custom applications, which is one of our core components, but it is to honestly educate everybody about ArcGIS Online and those tools available so we can feed off each other and stay competitive as consultants in the industry and help push the industry forward. So some benefits of having your data in ArcGIS Online. One, we went over data transparency. This is now centralized in one location, and this leads to transparency. Communication internally and externally. If someone was to come over to you at work and ask you, hey, what all activities do you have going on this track? You're probably going to say, well, I'm working on this right now. Let me look into it and I'll get back with you. So this lack of real-time communication is increasingly prominent in the industry today. And ArcGIS Online provides these avenues to help with communication, whether it's add notes to tracks, or you can even set up custom notifications and things like that. So the company, outside the company, so you can start to communicate more efficiently. It empowers non-GIS users. Once you have your data stored out in ArcGIS Online, even those, the non-GIS people, they can start to share it with others in your company or create maps and use mobile applications such as field maps. And they can create apps specifically for their needs if they get a little more involved with it. It's pretty straightforward to create an app these days out there. Sorry. So a few tips on how to get started. First and foremost, let someone come in and evaluate your business and provide a solution that works best for your company, because there's not a one end all be all solution. There's so many different ways you can do this. So let someone help you. Start making the switch to Pro now. That sounds very basic, but that's very important because Pro works so beautifully along with ArcGIS Online. And if you give up the old, it might be easier to go back and create a map in desktop, but take the extra hour or two to do it in Pro. And this is going to get you so far ahead. Standardization, Elizabeth touched on it a little bit, but that's one of the most important things too, before you even start to thinking about migrating data. Think about with a company, what kind of attributes do you want to store and collect? How are they going to be used in your modeling, growth and yield modeling, or harvest modeling? And how do you want to report out on these? And come up with a standard for that before you want to go try to implement an enterprise solution. So take baby steps, and that's kind of what I touched on in the previous two. So you have your data ready to go. The question always comes up about data security and how safe is my data out there. In forestry, we don't always think of this as a critical component of what we do, but we should, because we are typically the data managers. We're not necessarily the data owners. So this alone says that security should be at the top of our list. And let's see. So I'll share a little bit about Esri's security protocols. But first, it's important to think about how they're targeting, how hacking companies are targeting us in general. So you have your data sitting on your computer versus sitting on the cloud, and it's 100% safe if it's just sitting there, but it's never going to be just sitting there. You're always going to be adding others to your network or sharing your data out, allow to use the data. And this is opening up those holes for others to come in. So there's actual hacking companies out there that are sitting there, they're sending out spam emails, for example, and waiting on the right one to be open. And once it's open, then they can sit there, download software on your computer and sit there for days and days and weeks if they want to, until they get what they want. So usually they're not going to come after somebody like me or like that probably just has viewing capabilities. They want to go after your administrator, somebody who has some control, has all the passwords to your core data sets and things like that. And once they get theirs, they can go in, like I said, they can monitor that. And once they get that person's information, then they can start to distill the information and shut everybody out of the network if they want to. So along with Microsoft, Azure, and Amazon, AWS, and those type of companies, Esri has already invested millions in security. So we can focus more on our core, which is forestry. But we can't forget, there are a few things that we have to do, and I'll touch on that in a minute. So a few things. Few things I want to highlight about Esri security. You are the owner of the data. Once you publish it, you're the owner, you retain the intellectual property rights. If you want to, each organization that publishes data and stores data on ArcGIS Online has its own separate database. If you want to delete something, you can delete it, it's gone, there's no backup, it's gone. They use configurable security, meaning it's like I think of it as a second level of security around their higher level, which they're investing so much in. But they have certain roles that you can set up, people within your organization say who's accessing what data, because everybody does not need access to be an editor or or an administrator. You only need a few people so they have those roles. Esri has consistently invested in stronger ArcGIS security and has been providing services for over 15 years. So cloud computing is complex. However, by utilizing a secured backbone of both industry-leading cloud providers and geospatial services, ArcGIS Online is able to provide the security that organizations like us need. So what we need to worry about are things like, think about internally within our company, are our employees and coworkers following the best management practices, like just not opening junk mail, having strong passwords, not welcome 1, 2, 3 or something like that. Closing out of your network, that gets annoying, but really if you're gone for a couple hours, close out of your network, get out of the data. The users of the data, that's one of the most important within our company. Who's accessing what data? What privileges do they have? It can be taken personally, but not everybody hardly anybody needs that core access to the data. That's a couple people that should have that. So third party You can also go as far as to have third-party testing. So to wrap up, ArcGIS Online provides us with this solid path to data centralization, which in the end provides the transparency that we need. Plan a standard for your companies that meets what you're trying to get, and you'll be so far along when it comes to migrating your data out there. Lastly, don't spend time worrying about how to secure your data when you can store it in ArcGIS Online and all of these measures are in place. So moving your data to the cloud is a win-win for everyone. There's so many different types of companies and clients using it for different things, whether it's recreation or timber, or accounting, but it's all driven from that core data set. So putting your data out there, it's not only helping you, but it's helping everyone look at the data differently, and it's helping our industry move forward to new standards. And there's no telling what's coming next after everybody gets on the same page with data storage and where it's. That's all I have today. Thank y'all.